Jocelyn. It's awesome to see you. Thanks for coming onto the show today.
Thanks so much for having me, Alison. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, you and I had a conversation. Well, we have lots of conversations, to be honest. We both work together at Compass. But we were talking about how we have several buyers who have wanted to move to DC recently from various places. And you remarked that you actually do a lot of business with people who come from overseas, come from different time zones. And I do a ton of work with people who come from different cities, but not a tremendous amount from abroad. And I was like, well, what a great topic for us to talk about today, because buying a home is stressful and hard enough as it is.
Yes, it is.
It's hard to do from wherever you are. But in the US, typically I'll find people can come here, say for a weekend or something, and at least get a feel for the market. They're coming from abroad. That doesn't happen. So I thought this was a great topic for us to talk about. And if people are looking and trying to find, somebody to either help them or just a guide of how to get started, that this could potentially be it. So why don't you start by telling us, I mean, we all have lots of work going on right now. Hopefully it's a spring, but how many people are you working with who are coming from different time zones or from abroad?
So I currently have 3 different couples that are looking for homes in DC or Virginia or Maryland that are living overseas. Some in one couple, they're split between Kazakhstan and Tokyo. Another couple's in Egypt, and another is in, I think they're in Belgrade. Yeah, I can't even keep
They're
track.
not here.
Yeah,
They're
they're
not
not
here.
here.
That's the point. Wow. Okay. So that's a lot. And then I'm assuming you have other buyers and potentially
Mhm.
sellers and renters and all that here in DC. So congrats to you for being busy with that. But also, I guess my first question is, what are the biggest hurdles that you see with this that come up, time and time again?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question because there are specific hurdles when you're overseas. And if you haven't been in DC for a while, DC has changed so drastically. I am lucky enough to work with a lot of foreign service officers, so they may have been in DC 10 years ago. And so now we're trying to discover new neighborhoods which are more affordable. And so, how do you do that abroad? How do you actually communicate when their business hours or when we're sleeping and our business hours or when they're sleeping? And also when just the internet doesn't really work well in other countries, and then trying to communicate and get things done quickly. Those are
Yeah,
the biggest things that
you know,
we
something I've
encounter.
noticed, yeah, something I've noticed too, and I didn't really think about this till right now, is I have friends who are in Indonesia, and they owned here in DC for a very long time before they moved. And I don't think people realize that their wants and needs and desires change so much too when they're somewhere else. Because when you're in Indonesia, I was there for a month once. I didn't live there, but I mean, there's just like a lot of houses have an inherent smell of just like water and mold and stuff like that because you're in the tropics and you get used to it and it's fine. Do you want that in DC? No. But your focus has changed to different things. And so you might not even completely be attuned to what you want back here. So I mean, you add that on as well.
Yeah, usually they're like, "There's a dishwasher, great."
Yeah.
Like sold.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I mean, in just discovering, what does it mean to be in this neighborhood that you've never lived in? But I can compare it to. Luckily, I've been here for long enough to be able to compare it to. Oh, it was like neighborhood Y 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, that,
Um, so that is helpful. Also, if they have friends that know them a lot better than I do, I'm like, hey, why don't I take your friend out? We'll go look at this neighborhood. We'll go see these properties, and then that way you have a surrogate there for you
sure.
um, that knows you much better than I do.
Yeah. So let's back up a second and say, so, people are looking, everyone's looking right now online for places to
Mhm.
live. We're recording this in, well, it's May now, 2021. We've been a year plus into a pandemic. And the industry has changed a lot throughout I would assume throughout the world, but certainly in our country and definitely in DC. And there are some things that have started happening with more frequency that help anybody who's looking, period, end of sentence, in DC or not. Um, and those things are obviously pivotal right now, helping people who are abroad. So, maybe we can talk about that a little bit. I mean, I think it's commonplace at this point that everybody looks for good photos, right? Like, it's
Yes.
kind of like a duh, right? You need good
Right.
photos,
Yeah.
but but after that, you know, the next best thing is probably Matterport tours, right? You think the 3D dollhouse tours?
Those 3D dollhouse tours make such a difference because it allows the buyer to get a better sense of the spatial relations of a room. They're like, okay, I see a room with a couch in it. How big is that couch? I can't really tell. And sometimes you can measure on those. So you can measure ceiling height or something like that. And also just having the floor plans because the pictures can tell a story, but if they're not uploaded in a specific way, the flow is totally broken through and it's hard to move yourself through that house just with the photos. So the
Yeah.
floor plans and those 3D tours are pivotal. But those are for inside, those are the things for inside the home.
No, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. We can talk about the exterior in a minute, but I think it's pivotal to do all three of those things. And I
Mhm.
tell all of my clients that well, I mean, and we've covered this on the podcast before, but for any new listeners, these kinds of costs of doing these things, those are incurred by the agent who's listing,
Right.
right? So the seller should never hem and haw over whether or not these things should get done. I mean, it's a given in my book. Unless it's
Agreed.
like, yeah, unless it's a super, like a studio sometimes, or something where it's just so apparent what a place is like, then there are times when I haven't done a floor plan. But even then, I mean, we have so much access to that now as agents. All of these companies that either did it before poorly have done it better now, or companies that didn't offer these things now do. So there's very little excuse for a listing agent to not get these things done, especially if getting them done will help sell your place to an audience of people who aren't here.
And you can honestly just order them all together with your photos. So it's very easy to get it done. And so I do it all for all of my listings, and I'm doing it for a studio that I have coming up because I think that, a lot of people who are looking for studios, maybe downtown, are, potentially coming in from out of town. There's the new wave of college students coming in this fall, so there are all different reasons why. But another thing that we don't really talk about is how much time that we all spend just to go to a place when
Sure.
right now I think that the pandemic has helped us realize how precious our time is, and how much time we do spend on things that maybe, there's a better way of doing it. And having those 3D Matterport tours and the floor plans can really save time for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, no, it helps you limit, in a good way, limit your search and get excuse me, get the listings on your like final list that are more attuned to what you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so now we've kind of backtracked and said that like technology effectively is better now, right? Which is great. However, there's a lot of stuff that technology is not going to necessarily help you with if you're either, again, we can just say abroad, or let's say you're in California, and you're not vaccinated yet, so you don't feel comfortable flying here. You're effectively in the same boat as somebody in England,
Right.
minus the fact that you probably understand US law in terms of buying a house if you're in California versus versus another country. But so then, in my opinion, the next thing you need to be cognizant of when you are buying from a different place is making sure you are picking 100% the right agent. And of course, I think you and I are the two best agents out there. No, but seriously, it's this person is going to be your advocate and everything that an agent normally is, but this person is like more of your eyes and ears than ever before.
100%. 100%.
And so when you're picking the right agent, that person will know local laws and regulations. And as a small caveat, what I want to say is a lot of people move here and don't know if they want to be in DC, Maryland, or Virginia, or they're open to two, right? Two of the three places. And inherently you can understand where a place is and like understand where it is on a map, but there are different jurisdictional laws and regulations to know. Like Virginia is a buyer beware state, not as much is going to be
Mhm.
disclosed to you. So if you're buying from abroad, you're going to know much less in Virginia, right? Just because you don't have a list of disclosures potentially, than in DC, where like literally everything has to be disclosed effectively. So working with an agent who isn't going to push you one way or the other, but can explain some of these things, like why certain contingencies are more important in one jurisdiction versus another. Um,
If you're buying a place with a septic and water well, right? I mean,
right.
that's something that a DC agent who only works in DC knows nothing about because we don't have that. But you don't have to go too far into Maryland or Virginia to start hitting those types of things.
Yeah, I did one this year, and I had to,
Yeah.
I had to do a lot of research and talk to a lot of
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And I'm licensed in all three. Um, so the next thing about working with an agent that like I like pointing out is something you said earlier about the communication and the time. Like, you know, I know a lot of people who even again live in this time zone. They need to talk at various times because of their jobs or their, the responsibilities that they have. But when you said you have a couple, one of whom is in Tokyo and the other's not even there, I mean, off the air when we were talking earlier, I thought you had like a separate couple in one place and the other. You've got one couple in two different places.
Right.
That's insane. so
Yes.
I mean, so the fact is, you as the agent have to be on board with funky time zones and talking at weird times. And if you're finding the right agent for you, I mean, that's pivotal, right?
I think it's realizing that everybody has to work together as a team, right? And sometimes we're going to have to be up late, the agents are going to have to be up late, sometimes the buyers are going to have to be up late or very early. In this circumstance it was either 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. were really the best times for all three of us. So uh, it's about that, and also making sure that if you use WhatsApp, making sure that your agent knows what WhatsApp is and uses it. It could be simple things like that, because that is the best way for people to communicate when they're out of time zones and across countries. So it's that combination with, honestly, Compass is an amazing brokerage, hands down. I'm sure you've spoken about it here, but we use collections a lot to help us talk about specific properties instead of emailing links back and forth. And so, for those of you who don't know what collections is on Compass.com, it's basically a tool that allows us to all collaborate and talk about specific properties. There are discussions that you can have. You can share it with anybody. It's basically Pinterest for real estate. And that has been extremely pivotal so that we don't have just massive email threads going on.
Yeah, I mean, technology in general, I think is so. We talked about the technology in terms of, Matterport tours and all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff, but the communication in term, or sorry, and the technology in terms of communication, but in terms of finding these listings is also huge. And so we haven't actually talked about collections a lot on the podcast, but I like how you said it's like a Pinterest for real estate, because that really is what it is. And for me, that kind of tool has also been very, very important for when I'm working with my clients who are not here,
Mm-hmm.
because you can have a running communication that is logged in one place. Like, I don't know about you, but I am getting messages every day on Instagram, Facebook Messenger. I get text messages, emails on various accounts. I lose track of stuff a lot. And I try to push people to one place. So I know, in the morning I'm checking XYZ and I'm getting alerts to this XYZ place and everything. So that's kind of a caveat of the communication with your agent is, how are you communicating? Is it effective? Right? Are you guys on the same wavelength? Because I mean, somebody might not like WhatsApp, and that's fine. You don't have to use it, but making sure that you are on the same page about how you're communicating and when
You,
you're doing it.
you have to talk about it up front, right? And I don't know, for some reason, Google Meet is terrible in Egypt. But if you use FaceTime, then it's fine. But then if you're in this country, Google Meet's great. But then so it's all different. And I don't know if it's I don't know. That's out of my lane to explain how the internet works. And but it seems that every area has their own nuances, and so you have to talk about that up front. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, when we need to talk, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
Talk about all the different tools and what if somebody lives in a country where some of these things are potentially banned?
Right. Right.
So that's another right. That's a whole other discussion, I think. But
Right.
it's really important to talk about it, try it out, and then talk about it if it's not working.
Yeah.
And revisit how you guys are communicating throughout the whole process, because it has to be an iterative thing that everyone's learning at the same time how to talk to each other in general, and then you have the communication barrier on top of that.
Sometimes I just laugh about how many things that we're juggling as agents. I mean, we really are like project managers, you know? I've said that
Oh,
on air a million
totally.
times. This is like project managing. I wouldn't say even 101, like 104 because
30
it's pretty
302.
complicated.
Yeah. However college classes work
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then there's like the obvious stuff about working with your agent. And you had said something way earlier about involving like a friend to potentially who's in the state. So let's just take your State Department example. So somebody who worked in DC, they had to have a posting outside of the states now for 3 to 4 years. They're coming back. They still have State Department friends who are in town who hopefully know the neighborhoods and can kind of update them on what's happened, right? Versus somebody relying on their knowledge of when they were here 4 years ago.
Right.
But that person has their own life and job. And if we're talking about right now during a pandemic, that person may or may not be comfortable going out and touring several houses.
Mm-hmm.
So, making sure that you're talking and with your agent and finding the agent who, well, a combination of things really is going to be your eyes and ears. So the person who you ideally trust wholeheartedly, right? Like, I mean, maybe you're just getting to know this person, and so you don't trust someone 100% right away, but you trust them a lot. So you're maybe getting a review, reading the reviews, and talking to people, and you're trusting them. But then somebody who knows your style, somebody who like gets what you're looking for, because as much as I love those Matterport tours, I think you were the one who you said this. There's like these intangibles, right? These
You
things
don't
that
know what it's like to walk down the hallway in the building, and if it's has a weird smell. Like you don't have
sure.
you need someone to be able to vocalize the entire experience of being there. What is it like when you walk out the place and you go to the end of the block? So when I'm with my clients on pick your favorite video chat system or whatever, then I will walk to the end of the block. And I'll be like, this is what it looks like on this end of the block. This is what it looks like on that end of the block. And kind of walk through the neighborhood. Sometimes I'll take a video, before or after the showing. And again, it depends on what time of day we're kind of doing this. Recently, I was in Virginia at 7:30 a.m. doing a live tour because that was the latest that somebody could kind of stay up was and then the earliest that I could do, because we also can't get into properties. We
Yeah,
can't
we talked
get
about
into
that.
properties at
Block
midnight.
boxes don't even open, FYI, everybody, until
Right.
9 a.m. So, if you can get in earlier, you've got to get special clearance from somebody and figure out how to get the key out of the lockbox. Yeah. Anyway, go on. Sorry. So 7:30 a.m.
And, it's like, well, it's during a pandemic, so it's not completely indicative, but this is kind of around morning time when people are getting up. What is it like? And if there are specific times of the day that you like to be out or you have concerns about, go during that time of the day. And if you as the buyer can't be there, just ask your agent to take a video. So I do this combination of live FaceTimes or whatever videos, and also just taking a video, and then I upload the videos to a folder. So then we have like a running shared folder of all the videos for the properties that they want to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's a really good idea. I mean, you've got to be careful as an agent to not be giving your opinion too much, like because of there's like fair housing concerns and things like
Mhm.
that. But you want to make sure that you're also describing and giving as much information as possible to your clients who can't just, I've had clients who live in DC, they drive around the neighborhood multiple times before they even check a house out sometimes, certainly after. And while they're trying to understand different times of the day, like I walk my dog at 10 p.m. How is that going to feel? Right. That's not something that we can really comment on too much.
That's
Um,
right. That's right.
right. But we can give them that information, right, by doing a video or a live chat, like you're saying. So I mean, I think that's really the closest thing you're going to get, and the best thing you
Or right, and I think that's when having a friend, because it also depends on, most of the stuff can be done digitally, but you have to have a wet signature, which means like a signature on a piece of paper for signing the final documents at settlement. So either you have to come back or you have to have somebody sign for you. Sometimes they can send the documents overseas. You can get them notarized and then they send them back. It's just a little bit more convoluted. But you need to kind of form your whole team, and it could just be like, it's me and people's parents who are in town for them, and they're their eyes and ears, or a trusted friend, a brother, cousin, whatever. So I think it really goes back to the core of you being a team. And if you don't feel like you are a team together, and working towards the same goal, then it's just going to exacerbate any of the stresses that are really there.
Yeah. So if we're giving would-be buyers from abroad a very or far away, far away, so Alaska, right? That's not technically abroad, but they're very far. A guide, then it would be basically to find the right person who's going to help you build out this team. And we haven't even talked about, we don't have to get into it too much, but like, financing if you're abroad, if it's not somebody from the State Department, if it's just somebody who lives in, I don't know, let's just England, and they want to move here and they want to buy a house. It's great if they find us, but one of the first questions as agents we should probably ask is, well, do you have cash to purchase the house? Because to get a loan in the US, when you're not a citizen, you don't have credit, is basically impossible. Um, so, what's your plan? And then it would be great if we have a team for that person, but if they can't buy the house ultimately and they don't have the money, then the buck stops there, right? And we have,
Yeah, and it depends on the country, because there are some agreements with credit scores, and they can use the credit score for that home country. So you definitely have to talk with a lender that has done this type of work before,
sure.
and has worked with people overseas. And another thing is that when you buy a home as your primary residence, you're saying that you're going to move in within 60 days. So that's another caveat, is timing everything right for you to then move back. I mean, there's so much that is involved in this. So it really takes a lot of time and effort, and it's hard to do this casually when you're overseas.
Yeah. Well, a lot to think about. I mean, even a lot to think about as agents, right? For if
Hmm.
any agents are listening to this and they haven't done it before, kind of word to the wise, it's not necessarily an easy transaction. Not that we only do easy transactions, but it takes a lot of planning and thought, even more than a normal typical transaction with people who are here in town. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, even with the work that it takes, I love it so much, because you really build that trust with the people that you're working with,
You
and you
have
build that
to.
connection. You have to, and that's what I love the most about it.
Well, I hear you. It's kind of the same reason why I like working with first-time home buyers. They have a lot of questions, and everything it seems like a big deal, but it just feels really good when you help people kind of get over these major hurdles, and you help them do something that's a big deal for them or just really challenging. It's just more rewarding, I think, personally.
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good place for us to stop. Thank you so much for coming on. You obviously
Thank
are a wealth of
you.
knowledge with all of this, and so we'll make sure to have your contact info in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, or if obviously anyone wants to reach out to me, we're happy to answer questions, and hopefully we'll have you on the show again soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Bye.